Hello, everyone. There was a slight issue with our guest's camera on this episode, so it will freeze occasionally, but the conversation still flows, goes quite well, and all the audio is fine. So I just want to throw that out there before we get started. But please enjoy the next episode of Behind the Headset. Hello, and welcome to Behind the Headset. And today we are graced with the presence of Sam Gage. How you doing, Sam? You good? Okay. So, some people watching this would go, who's Sam Gage? I don't know who Sam Gage is, which is a shame because you have quite the pedigree when it comes to VR. So, why don't you let our listeners and viewers know about some of the things that you've worked on?
Sure. So the first VR game I ever worked on was PlayStation VR Worlds. I sort of lucked out joining PlayStation just as they were getting into that. I had no idea that that was what I was going to work on. I thought I was going to go and work on a Wonderbook game, if you know what the Wonderbook is. For those who don't, it's a sort of augmented reality children's book, which is all very fun. But yeah, a couple of months into my employment there, they switched and decided they were going to start doing VR stuff. So I basically got to spend about 2 years just doing kind of pure R&D, messing around, trying out ideas, probably prototype like 30 odd games, of which I think 4 of them ended up on PlayStation VR Worlds, along with a sort of very pretty ocean kind of demo sequence. Then after that, I went into the film industry for a little bit. So I went to a company called Third Floor, where we did a VR experience based on the Martian movie, which won a Silver Lion at the Cannes Film Festival.
Nice.
Very nice. Then kind of experimented around with a whole load of different VR stuff for various people, and sort of looked into virtual production and sort of other ways to use the technology within the film industry. So that was great fun. And then I got a call from somebody who was looking for someone to run a studio that was making medical VR applications.
Okay.
So we developed a treatment for acrophobia, the fear of heights, and social anxiety as well, sort of helping people train and get back into the society. So that was good fun. And then after a little while of kind of doing, I guess, non-game stuff, I got the itch to get back into games. And End Dreams at the time, they were sort of, they'd done some interesting things. They had, I think, was in development. It was sort of nearing the end of development, and I went in and had a look at that.
Sorry, which one was in development?
Covert Ops.
Oh, okay, Phantom Covert Ops. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went in and I tried that, and I was like, "This is great. You're doing some really fun work here." And they said that they wanted to do a game which involved skiing and shooting and various other things. So I thought that sounds like a fun challenge. So I went there and basically was doing mechanics development for them for about 1.5 years. So that was kind of doing the sort of skiing mechanic. We were doing climbing, and we accidentally invented the cover shooting mechanic, which I can sort of say about later if you want. But basically, we were sort of combined ladders and shooting, and people kept using the ladders to find cover. So that was a fun little thing that ended up being the game.
Cool.
And yeah, so after doing that, I sort of dotted about doing a few bits of contract work and decided finally to start my own thing, which is Engage Software, which you can see got our logo on the t-shirt in the background. So we're currently working on some interaction and locomotion technology, which is great.
Excellent. That's really good. It's funny that you mentioned that. I started playing Fract on the Quest again the other day. I was fortunate enough that Roto VR sent me one of their Explorer chairs, and I thought, oh, we'll try it with Fract and let's see how that goes. Because and that cover mechanic that you accidentally created is like, why is this not in everything? Is what most people say when they try that. So kudos, man. There you go, people. This is why we've invited this man on. He knows his stuff. Okay. So, what we're going to do today, Sam, is we're going to get to learn a bit more about you as a person. So our first question for you is, tell me something about you that I don't know.
Right. Sorry, just getting rid of the cat. Tell me something about me you don't know.
Yeah.
What's a nice juicy one?
We've had some juicy ones.
I don't know. Everything about me is quite mundane, apart from the VR. That's usually the most interesting thing about me.
Mm-hmm.
I like I like to garden. I like to cook. I
Okay.
like to sort of do the normal things. But hmm, so, I don't know. I should have thought of about that one before.
No, it's fine. This is the thing: is so there are no right or wrong answers to any of these questions. None of them are gotcha questions, and they're all just
No,
about
no,
to
no.
get to know. So yeah, and also if you're not comfortable answering any of it, just say, and that's cool. And I get that; it's not a problem. We're not going to get there, trust me. But it's always good to put that out there just in case. All right then.
Yeah.
So when you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I actually wanted to make video games.
Okay.
So yeah, I kind of so when I used to play on my Mega Drive was like my first sort of proper games console.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always I'd sort of messed around when I was a kid trying to make my own board games, and then I got the Mega Drive and I was kind of looking at stuff, and then you'd get things like do you remember there was that cheat in Sonic where you could like turn into any object and just sort of spawn any object?
Yes. Yeah.
And I used to love just like because the thing was it only had persistence on one screen, so as soon as you went off the screen and came back, your stuff was gone. But yeah, I was just like, oh, I'm doing stuff, and that was fun. So then there was a racing game called Monster Truck Madness.
Yep, I remember that.
Oh, great! Yeah, so I got into modding that, and I made a whole load of mods for basically like a Micro Machines reskin of the game, and I was into Revolt, a kind of a remote control car racing game as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that had a modding community, and I kind of just got into like largely racing game modding until I decided that I was going to go and do a degree in video games. That's what I wanted to do, and kind of as I was coming up to that, I started actually getting into modding like Unreal Engine, Source Engine. Yeah.
Okay.
From there, I still do that. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's really cool. So it's nice. We've had a few people that have come on, and the thing they wanted to be that they grew up is actually what they do now, and that's quite heartwarming to me. I quite like that. All right then. So, what would you say is your most treasured memory from your childhood?
Ooh. It's an incredibly deep question.
I have thought about these. Let's to ask these questions.
I'll tell you what's a good memory from my childhood that relates to the work I do. So I grew up in a town that is on a hill.
Mm-hmm.
So going out of the town in various directions and also sort of within the town in various parts, you've got these kind of very long, steep hills. And what we used to like to do is we were going around on our skateboards, and we would sometimes lie down on our skateboards and go down on our backs and push all the way to the bottom. So you might have seen a game where I got some inspiration from that.
Yes, I believe I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. Being able to bring that kind of excitement to everyone with a little bit less of a danger of broken ankles. So.
That's cool. All right then, Sam. You are going to host a dinner party. And at this dinner party, you can invite any 3 people you want. They can be living, they can be dead, they are alive in the dinner party. They can be real, they can be fictional. Who are you inviting to your dinner party?
I don't know. Off the cuff like that. I don't think I've got any good answers for that.
Was there like one name that popped into your head when you thought about that?
Honestly, not really. It's not the sort of thing to think about. I mean, I love having a dinner party. I love having people around and probably all my neighbors and friends and family is the boring answer, which is what usually happens when I have a party round. I like to get all the people I know together, which is very lovely.
Your nearest and dearest is what matters to you then.
And smushy.
That's cool. All right then. So, what would you like to change about yourself?
Ooh, well, right now, I'd like to change the fact that I haven't finished the project I'm working on, and very much having finished the project I'm working on.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in terms of kind of like what I get to do every day as a job, um, that kind of keeps me entertained.
Hmm.
I'm basically doing what I like, which is solving unnecessarily difficult problems to try and push what people can do in virtual reality a little bit further. Um, I don't know. Got a pretty nice setup where I am, living in the town I want to live
Hmm.
in a place I quite like. So yeah, I'm kind of satisfied at the moment.
That's cool. That, again, like I say, no right or wrong
It's,
answers. If you're happy with your bag, then you're happy, and that's cool.
yeah, yeah. I think I sort of spent the last kind of 15 years kind of battling away, working far too hard to sort of get where I want to be, and now I'm just sort of a little bit. I've got some cats and
Hmm.
very comfortable.
Yeah. No, that's good. All right then. So, how would you say you deal with criticism?
How do I deal with criticism? Well, I suppose if it's fair, then I'll try and take it on board.
Hmm.
Um, and if it's not, then I'll probably largely ignore it. Um, I guess I don't really get much criticism. Like
Hmm.
I don't think sort of like because you know with like the like video game fans can be a little bit spicy sometimes, and I think there's a few franchises. There's certainly been franchises that I've looked at working on, and then I sort of see the fans and the reactions and things, and I just think I don't know. But like, luckily, because like VR is quite niche, everybody's quite nice about it, and because
Mm.
I've been in a lucky position of kind of pushing the boundaries a bit with what I've done, the responses tend to be quite positive.
Yeah.
So I've kind of lucked out in that sense. The only sort of harsh criticism I've had on sort of the work I've done is probably The Martian, the reviews that we got on Steam, but that was largely because it was marketed as a video game and it was only like a 20-minute long linear experience,
Right.
and they charged 20 quid for it, and
Wow.
fans, yeah, I completely mad decision. But
Mm.
apart from that, everybody and that was completely fair, and they
Yeah.
loved the experience. They said this is not a video game, and I thought, well, it's not. So I couldn't really take that criticism on myself.
So we can put
Um,
that one onto marketing then. That's their fault by the sound of it.
no, yeah, I've been quite lucky that yeah, everyone's been quite nice.
Mm. One thing I've noticed in the VR community, again, because it's still fairly niche, we've been very good at kind of policing ourselves so that we haven't really. And if someone does step out of line, they tend to get told, and it's like, no, that's not how you behave. But I think the more it grows, the more difficult that's going to be, and we'll have to see how that works. So yeah, we'll see. All right then. What type of routine do you follow daily, if any type of routine at all?
Um, so I usually get up about sort of I guess I'm making breakfast at about 8:30.
Mhm.
Um, maybe go sit in the garden for a bit. This is the joy of working from home. Is that I don't have that commute. I get to have a nice slow kind of wake up, enjoy my breakfast, enjoy my coffee. Um, Sit down, maybe do some work until kind of midday. Then I go out for a nice long walk. Take sort of an hour and a half of lunch.
Nice.
Usually go somewhere, grab some lunch or something, just an excuse
Hmm.
to stretch my legs, because that's the downside of working from home, is you can very much end up just staying in your house all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I work till kind of 6 o'clock, I suppose, and then
Hmm.
stop. It's like complicated dinner. Yeah, it's surprisingly close to what I would have to if I was being employed by somebody else,
Hmm.
and that's because I suppose like it's a break from where previously I was working for other people, and then I had my own projects, and I'd have to squeeze them into my free time. And I think I'm enjoying the fact that I get to manage my work time and kind of box that in to a working day, and then it means that the rest of the time I can actually be genuinely having some free time, which is something. Yeah, I've not really had free time. Like until like people say that like starting your own business, it's kind of a crazy thing and it takes up all your time. But I've never had so much free time because I was always trying to do my own thing and have a full-time job, and it's kind of finally I'm
Sure.
just doing my thing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, it was interesting. I lost my job at the beginning of the summer. I had all of summer off, and the amount of stuff that I did to keep myself occupied was great, to the point where I was like, "How am I going to fit a job in now?" This sort of thing. It's really strange, but yeah, it was good. All right then. So, who would you say has inspired you the most?
it was inspired me. Um, I'm always really bad when it comes to specific people because like I
Hmm.
don't. I've been in video games long enough to know how sort of collaborative everything is. So I always see the thing and I never
Hmm.
judge the person. So it's kind of difficult to judge. Certainly there's kind of
Was there
yeah
like
I do
teams of people that inspired you, or even if it wasn't an individual, was there one place in particular you worked where you're like, "This is the thing," or anything?
um I suppose the thing I get sort of like little bits of inspiration off of lots of people.
Hmm.
the
Which is
idea,
fine, yeah. That makes
yeah.
sense. Take the best from the different ones and feed off of that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work with some like incredibly talented sort of people. Particularly like when I went to work at PlayStation, that was completely because sort of the things that people are just doing, and you speak to them, and they're sort of casually describing what they do in their job and the results that they can actually achieve on the hardware, and just some of the people that I'm working with, it's like they're working at a level that
Yeah.
it was kind of amazing that I could I was good at what I was doing.
Mm.
I was there. I hope I was good at what I was doing. But just to be sort of surrounded by people who it's like every single discipline was doing things where it's like if I started again and just like worked my ass off, it would take me like 15 years to be good, even if I was like really, really, really going at it. So it's kind
Yeah.
of being able to like be at the core of that because as a technical designer, that's like you get to basically make the rough version of everything.
Hmm.
And then the artists come along and just make it look incredible, and the programmers obviously get the thing actually running on the kits, and it's just kind of yeah, that's been pretty fun. Just kind of I suppose being able to utilize their talents to make the
Yeah.
thing I want to make.
Hmm.
Yeah, so you kind of feel a responsibility to come up with something good and put a good effort in because
Yeah.
I'd
No,
hate to waste their time, you know.
yeah. No, I can relate to that because I I worked for 5 years in Formula One, so I was surrounded by like some of the best people in the world at what they did. And I'm like, why am I here when you're looking around and sort of thing? So yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that. But there you go, Sam. That's section one, where we've got to learn a bit more about you as a person. So I think that's quite cool. So we're going to talk about VR and gaming because that's how we know each other. So what was your first experience in gaming?
First experience in gaming, what like the first game I played.
Yeah. Well,
So the
again,
first
no
game,
wrong answers. How you interpret the question is up to you.
first game I played was Space War, and that was running on some weird little MOD portable computer that my dad had brought home from work.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I was like 2 or 3 years old, and all I did was just fly in a straight line. And I thought it was amazing that you went off one side of the screen and came back on the other side of the screen, and it was great fun. And he also had, I think he had Prince of Persia and Lemmings also that
Oh
ran on his
wow.
computer. I'd
Yeah.
only get to glimpse those when I got to go to work with him. And so the first kind of like proper games console, as I said, like I had was the Mega Drive, and that came with I think it came with Aladdin and Lemmings. So
Hmm.
those were my kind of two first games, and then I think our neighbour down the road had Street Fighter Two Champion Edition. Um,
Ah.
so that became another great love. And then sort of Micro Machines and yeah, all the classics.
Yeah. Yeah,
and by that
that
point,
era of the 16-bit gaming, there was some pretty special stuff on that sort of stuff. So, what was your first experience in VR?
my first experience in VR was a VR experience that I built myself.
Oh,
So
okay.
literally never tried VR before, and the like this again was sort of at the point I had no idea I was going to work on it, and then taken to a special room at PlayStation, which ironically was called the glass room, but it was the room that you couldn't look into unless you were allowed. And so I went in there, had a look at this like cobbled together thing, and they were like, "This is what you're going to work on." And then so I get back to my desk, and then someone basically brings over a screen, and I had to put the track. I had to build the tracking system for it using a Move controller. I went down the local haberdashery, bought some Pro straps, and sort of strapped this Move controller with this display onto my head. And yeah, at the time, like this was like I think the DK1 Kickstarter had just finished. I think
Okay.
this is like super early, and the DK1 was off, so it had no positional tracking, and it also had no hand controllers.
Yes.
And so the sort of the first thing that we wanted to try with our setup was we had the 6-DoF tracking with the Move controller, but also we had you could track I think 7 Move controllers on the PlayStation 3. So I had a Move controller in each hand, one on the head with the display. It was the controllers were being tracked by a PlayStation 3, which was outputting the values over the network to my PC, which was running a piece of custom software that output then to the headset.
Right.
So it was horrible, and it had like about a quarter of a second of latency because it was running over the LAN in a very horribly suboptimal way. And yeah, we put together this little demo. I knocked up this thing where I think you had loaves of bread, and you had tins of beans, and you had a sword, and you could. The game was that you had to slice a slice off of the bread, and slice a slice out of the tins of beans, and you got a little circle of beans, and you put it on the bread, and you won. Everybody was just like, look, I thought, showed it to a whole load of people, and everybody just kept putting their head through the shelves that the things were on, and being like, I can look underneath, and it was kind of, it kind of showed me that the magic of it was, people completely ignored the fact I tried to make a little game there, and they were just like, I'm in a space and I'm doing the things, and it was because at that point I think pretty much everybody I showed it to, it was their first VR experience. I think very there might be like 2 people in the studio who tried a DK1 at that point.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so basically you made Beans on Toast Ninja, is what we're hearing, isn't it? That's, man, I remember having the Move controllers and I had the PlayStation Eye, so I used those Move controllers when I got my PSVR 1, so I still had them. So I was fortunate enough I didn't have to go and hunt for any, which I thought was quite nice.
I'll get a prop. Hold on a second.
Oh, what have we got? Oh, Sam's going to surprise us with something. What do we think he's going to bring back, ladies and gentlemen? Hopefully it's nothing that we shouldn't see. Who knows? Oh, what's you got? What's you got?
Zero.
Yes, there we go.
That's my original one from PlayStation. They let me keep that.
Oh, that was nice of them. That's really cool. All right then. What has been your favourite experience you've tried in VR?
Ooh. Favorite experience in VR. I really love climbing. Like, I think that's my favorite thing for moving around is climbing. So, I think probably climbing was like the first one that like did it well in terms of the sort of simple grip and pull that works, and it's so stupidly obvious that you think, why didn't I think of that? And then I completely lifted that for Fract, but I felt like it enough at that point that it was a bit of an established mechanic.
I think so.
VR, dragging yourself around with your hands, it's a very, very effective way of moving around. It's very physical. So I think that really to me is that was the biggest thing that I think has worked like really, really well that I didn't think of when we were doing the stuff at PlayStation,
Hmm.
basically. Because walking around is still a bit rubbish, like and like flying's like all right, like every other movement mechanic's kind of all right, but
Right.
it's very compromised. Whereas climbing, it just feels right to me, especially
I
if you get.
also suspect that the climbing you would have far less motion sickness because you're
Yeah,
physically moving yourself rather than just pressing a stick forward and then gliding off, which is
yes,
generally what sets people off on the motion sickness. So having that physicality, because that's one interesting thing I've noticed using the Roto VR, the chair that turns. So as I look, the chair turns with me, and I was like, oh, I can see how this would really help people with motion sickness because you're physically getting that sensation as well, which was quite interesting. All right. So on the flip side of that one, what has been your worst experience in VR?
um, I think well, so I don't want to name. Yeah, I don't want to name names of actual games. But
No.
like, like the worst thing I've done myself.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like at PlayStation, as I said, we had literally no idea what was good, what was bad, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, right? And a lot of my job there was to work out what kind of games you can make in VR,
Mm-hmm.
and also kind of what the limitations are and what feels good, what doesn't.
Okay.
And I'm quite robust in terms of my ability to see things doing things that the rest of my senses are not agreeing with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Other people, not so much. So, among the experiments that we did, um, there was one that we called Mr. Pukey, and basically what that was a chair, and it was basically just it was a VR experience. You're just in a warehouse. There's a chair, and you could just make that chair do a movement. And there were certain
Right.
movements that we got where you just do the like a I think it was like a sort of a reverse roll thing. You could just make anyone feel really bad really quick. Just movement. So that was fun, kind of doing the anti work to see what we should
Mm.
avoid. But I think the thing that made me personally feel the worst
Mm.
was I made a demo called Chameleon, and what this demo was you had a normal joypad, and you could use the joysticks to pivot your eyes. And
Oh.
yeah, don't do that.
There's
Um,
there's actually I saw at EGX. There's a new game where you can literally take your eye out and put it
yes,
somewhere else,
I
and I
saw
was like,
that.
that's
They've done
interesting.
Yeah, they've done some very smart things to make sure that you don't feel sick. Because another, like, I've done the actual eye on a stick thing, and that
Mm-hmm.
again is just a really horrible idea. And I think with the way they do it, like, once you're looking through that eye, it's planted somewhere, and it's kind of
Yes.
you can't do like one of the worst ones is if you roll one of your eyes by a couple of degrees.
Uh
Oh, it feels so horrible, and you don't know why.
huh.
Process these things. We had one of the meeting rooms at PlayStation. We like modeled a room the same size and everything with sort
Mm-hmm.
of the main sort of items in there.
Yeah.
And we were doing some tests with like IPD. So we had it so that you had it set that your eyes were really far apart or really close together in the VR thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're there in the room, and you're like, this room feels too small. But then you're looking at the headset and you're looking at the room, and you're like, everything lines up, but the room feels too small when your eyes are far apart. Or if you put the eyes too close together, the room just feels big. But you can't
Interesting.
explain why it feels big. Having your eyes not be that far apart that
Mm-hmm.
they are, that's not something you've ever experienced, and it's not something your brain knows how to process. So you just look at it and you go, the room just feels the wrong size, but everything I'm looking at lines up, and it's the weirdest
That's
thing.
really
And
interesting.
we're pushing
So
that
just
because we had to find out like, is this stuff important? It turns out it very much is. Um,
man, you were really on like the forefront of discovering what works and
yeah, it
what
was fun
doesn't with it.
to play an experimentation. It was great.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. All right. So when you're trying a new game, whether it be a VR or flat game, for example, what instantly turns you on or off?
Uh, well, I mean, for VR games, it's very much like I like to like to feel kind of one with the VR experience. Basically, it's
Hmm.
that when it embody whatever it is it's doing, it should be doing well. And I think the games that break it for me are the games that try to do too much and have too much complexity.
Hmm.
Um, like like VR can only simulate to a certain degree, and after that, you kind of have to just like smooth over the interactions.
Hmm.
And so I find, for example, like when it comes to like, I take the simple example of gun games, right? I
Hmm.
hate complex reload mechanics in VR games.
Okay.
It drives me mad because I don't want to do that. I want to be Mr. Hollywood badass. I want to like, it's the who are you trying to make me feel like I am in your VR experience? And I've seen some great games, and I'm just there like fudging about and going, oh, I forgot to pull the little thing back.
Sure.
Why am I having? And that's what I really loved about what we did in the heist is like you run out of ammo, you just slap another cartridge in, slap a cartridge in,
Yeah.
and it's like that's it. And I love that kind of when they gloss over all the stuff that I don't want to have to mess around with, so I can
Hmm.
just be doing the thing that feels great and focusing on that. I think that's
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I've said many times before. It's like I don't want it to feel real, but I just want it
Yeah.
to feel right, which is two different things. One of the equations I used for it recently was like the Batman Arkham Shadow is just once, and it's
Yeah.
like I could not do that in real life like this,
Yes.
but this game makes me feel like I could, and that's what it is. So yeah, I definitely think the difference between those two is a really significant one. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm really interested in your answer to this question because I think you're going to have a much more interesting view on this than most people that I've had to, which is what do you think right now is the most beneficial hardware or software advancement in VR?
Um, it's definitely on the software side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, obviously, it's nicer to have like more power to play with, but I think like once I'd say probably like Quest 2 was when hardware really stopped being the limitation for me.
Okay.
Obviously, like as I said, you can always come up with something that will struggle to run the kits, but the power of a computer, like I'm thinking back to when we were kind of getting stuff, trying to get stuff running on like 980s, or like even crazier, trying to get stuff run on like a cardboard or some
Mm-hmm.
Samsung horrible little headsets that they had, and like now the fact that we've got essentially like pretty powerful cable free, inside out tracked. You've got the
Mm-hmm.
pass through camera stuff. Like you've kind of got all the toys to play with, and I think we're still kind of waiting for design to catch up because there's a lot of inconsistency among VR games, which I think makes it difficult to just pick up and play one because you've kind of got to get used to that person's interpretation. There's a lot of standardization just hasn't happened yet. Like
Yeah.
I can pick up kind of a like a console twin stick game and I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Versus VR, it's like, oh, what's your motion controls? Oh, you're doing this kind of. Oh, you do teleport on the stick instead of the button. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
that sort of friction still gets me a bit, and I think that stuff. It's like there is a lot of stuff where it's standards will just fall out of people getting used to stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of yeah. But there's also, I think, just in terms of the types of games that we're making. Like I think back to when we were doing, for example, doing the London Heist. If you'd have described Fract to me, I'd have
Mm-hmm.
said like that sounds like borderline impossible to get those mechanics working. But then time went on. Slowly, the individual elements of it were worked out, and by the time I came to actually tackle that one, really the skiing was kind of the only thing I had to figure out myself. Everything else had been done to some degree in another game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the funny thing is that like in that sense, like could have been a launch title, but actually it was like right at the back end of the PS4,
Mm-hmm.
PSVR, and there was no reason for that other than we just didn't know how to do that at that time. But there was no hardware limitation; like it ran on the same hardware that was out, years before. And I think that's probably where we are at the moment. Is like just need people to keep trying stuff and see what works and slowly learn lessons and kind of
Yeah.
improve everything.
No, yeah, no. I think standardization is something that would really, really help because then, again, you boot into something, you know exactly what controls do what. And I have a big issue because I'm left-handed, so I immediately want to swap the analog sticks over if we're using them because I don't want to be moving. I want to be using them the other way around. And the amount of games that I get where I cannot do that is really annoying. And it's like that's a simple fix for me. So I think giving the player the choice if it's not standardized is kind of what we need to do then. All right then. So, what has been your proudest achievement in your VR journey?
It's probably VR World. Getting that kind of being able to work on the launch title for the PlayStation VR was just I don't want to say that's a proud achievement. It was luck getting onto it, obviously in the first place. But I figure it feels like we nailed it pretty well. It came off all right. And I think there was some stuff that we did there that, like, at that point, with absolutely no reference for what we were doing whatsoever, to achieve that, I think that was, as I said, everything else since, it feels a little bit like I've sort of been constantly looking around and plagiarizing in that. But at that point, I was like, no, that was all original work because we didn't have anything to steal. So
Yeah. So you'll be quite pleased then probably that the PlayStation VR 1 was my first VR headset.
Nice.
First thing I played, I played it for the first time at EGX when they showed it before it was released. I walked in, I played Batman Arkham, and I walked out, and I pre-ordered one there and there on my phone straight away. And then I got back in the queue and went round again. And on PlayStation Worlds, I remember playing all of that for the first time, really enjoyed it. And I remember my parents came round, and Mum was like, "Oh, what was that?" And I put her into the Ocean one with the shark, was the first thing I put her on. Mum has never put a headset on again. And that's on me. So, yeah, Dad was like, not interested.
That was actually the first experience I put my mum in. So.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, there's something we have in common. Excellent. Right, so that's all we're going to talk about VR and gaming, but that's cool. Seriously, man, you've worked on some really interesting stuff. Fascinating to me, really is. But we are going to finish off with a questionnaire that was developed by a French journalist called Bernard Pivot. Very simple questions, usually one-word answers. Feel free to expand if you want. First thing that pops into your head, and we'll go for it. So your first question is, what is your favourite word?
To really throw me. This is the trouble at doing it at the end of a workday.
To be fair, this first one always throws people when they get that one, and then the rest of them seem to come quite well. Anything pop in?
No, it really isn't. I'm drawing a blank, sorry.
Okay, that's all right then. So on the flip side, what is your least favourite word? Do we know what that is?
That's my least. I don't really have strong opinions on words like that.
That's fine. It's all right. What turns you on creatively? It's all right. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I would have to say being outside is probably the main way that I like to sort of spiritually recharge, as it were.
Okay.
I'm lucky enough where I live to be very close to sort of several really nice sort of woods and rivers and various bits. So yeah, spending time out there.
Oh, good.
That's always a nice way to spend the weekend away from technology.
All right then. So on the flip side of that one, what turns you off?
Ooh. AI generated content.
Good man. I like that. That's really good. All right then. What is your favourite curse word?
Oh, big bugger, because my gran used to say it a lot.
All right then. What sound or noise do you love?
got to be my cat purring.
I get that. Completely get that one. What sound or noise do you hate?
Dogs barking.
All right.
Yeah.
What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
No, I mean, I've been doing this for 16 odd years now. If I wanted to try something else, I don't know, probably like bakery or something.
Okay, that's fine. So, what profession would you not like to attempt?
Well, I wouldn't probably want to go back to my old job, sort of mopping floors in hospitals or working on the recycling lorries and things that I used to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, that does sound like that sucks. Okay, Sam. And our final question for you today is, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I can explain.
Sam, that was excellent. That has been you behind the headset. Seriously, Sam, thank you ever so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you had fun, is the main thing.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed it. Do you want to tell everyone who's watching where they can find you online and any pluggables, that sort of stuff?
So, you can find me, on Twitter less and less as Scampleton. Nowadays, more on Blue Sky as Scampleton because that's the new cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm Scampleton on everything, to be honest. YouTube.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll put all of those links in the description video. But once again, Sam, thank you very much. That has been Behind the Headset. And for everyone who's watching, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If it's good, great. If it's bad, also great. Just get engagement. It all helps. But other than that, thank you very much and goodbye.